This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Abba, welcome everyone. Continue in Daf HaShavua. We're learning Maseches Kesubos, Daf Chaf Amud Beis. The Gemara had a machlokes whether. Can you hear me? The Gemara had a machlokes whether. What if the Baal Davar himself, the lender, reminds the Eidim of the information? The halacha is that we can then not rely on the Eidim anymore because maybe their memory was suggestive memory, and we can't trust the Eidim. But if the aid who was reminded is a Torah scholar, then we could trust that he would not testify unless he really remembered on his own. Says Gemara, V'yitzur mirabanan, if he's a young Torah scholar, who? Afilu atzmai, even if he reminded, even if the Baal Davar himself, the Malveh, reminded the aid, we would believe him. Kihad Rav Ashi, similar to the story with Rav Ashi, have a yediyale b'sadusel Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi knew eidos about Rav Kahana. Amar le Rav Kahana said, "Midachar mari hai sadusei." He was trying to remind him. Does the master remember the eidos? Amar le loy, I don't remember. So Rav Kahana said, "V'lav hachi v'hachi." Ava, didn't this and this happen? Amar le loy yadana, I don't remember. L'soif idkar Rav Ashi. In the end, Rav Ashi remembered asidle, and he testified about Rav Kahana for his benefit. Chazia. The Rav Kahana, to have a mechasim, he saw Rav Kahana was sort of stammering. Like, how could this person have testified if originally he didn't remember? What is he lying? Is he only testifying because I reminded him? Amar lei. So he said, Rav Ashi said to Rav Kahana, Misavar Allah kasam chinon. Do you think that I'm reliant on you? Anahu d'ramay anashi ve'adkari. I placed it onto myself and I remembered. Meaning, I'm not relying on you. I summoned up my own memory. Okay. The Gemara continues. Once we're on the topic of memory, we're going to talk about areas in Eretz Yisrael, whether we have to be choishesh, they have tumah in them. Tanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah over there in Ayhalais, in Parak Tezayin Mishnah Beis. Hateluliyos, mounds. Now the mound may or may not have a dead body buried in it. We have no idea. It could have been used conveniently if somebody needed to bury someone on the side of the road, especially if they had a miscarriage or a limb that needed to be buried. But if there's a mound in Eretz Yisrael, hakroivos, the ones that are close by, vein la'ir, whether to the city, vein la'derech, or to the road, echad chadashos, whether they're new, the echad yeshanos, or whether they're old. So we say as follows: Tameos, they're tamei. If they're close by, even if they're new, they're tamei. Why? Because you never know. A woman could have buried a nafel over there, and nobody knew about it. Certainly, if it's an old mound, maybe someone was actually buried there, and it just got forgotten from the collective memory of the tzibur. However, harachoikos, the ones that are far away, chadashos tahiros, the new ones are tahar, because if somebody was buried there, we would know about it. Yeshanis, but if it's an old mound, tameos, they're tamei, because maybe someone was buried there and it was forgotten. Ezehu kroiva, what's considered close by that we say that even if it's new, it's tamei? Chamishim amma, within 50 amos, even if it's not the closest one. We say that it's within 50 amos, maybe a woman buried a nafel over there. Ve'ezahi yeshana, what's an old one that we say, even if it's new, even if it's close, it's tamei. In other words, Rashi says, what's considered old that we say that even if it's, even if it's far, it's tamei. What's considered old that even if it's far, it's tamei? That's shishim shana, 60 years. Because if it's more than 60 years, somebody might have been buried there and it was forgotten. So we want to know what's considered far, what's considered close, that even new is tamei. And what's considered far, that even and what's considered old, that even far is tamei. What's considered new, what's considered close, that even new is tamei, and what's considered old, that even far is tamei, 60 years. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no. Kroiva, close, means she'ein kroiva himeno. There's nothing closer than it. Yeshana, so if there's nothing closer than it, even if it's more than 50 amos, we still say that even if it's new, it's tamei. Yeshana, if it's old, that we say it's tamei, even if it's close. She'ein adam zarcha. Nobody remembers a time that it wasn't there. So now the Gemara wants to know, my ir or my derech. What's considered a city and what's a road? Ilema ir mamish. If the city is an actual city, derech mamish, and it's a road. So would we just, because there's a suffix, say and deem Eretz Yisrael as tamei? Says Gemara, misfeika mi machzekina tuma. If it's just a random city or road, would we be machzek tum in Eretz Yisrael? Amar Reish Lakish said, Ila Matsu, they used any excuse to V'tiaru Eretz Yisrael, and they were Matar Eretz Yisrael. So we know when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, unless you have sort of ironclad evidence that it's Tameh, we're going to assume it's Tahar. So why would an ear or a derech be considered Tameh? Amar Rab Zera said, Ir hasmuchal beis hakvaros. When we talk about a city, we mean a city close to a cemetery. The derech, when we talk about a road, derech beis hakvaros, the road of the cemetery. The ear is the city next to the cemetery. The road is the road next to the cemetery. So Gemara says, Bishlam derech beis hakvaros. I understand the road of the cemetery. Dezimnin demisrame bein hashmashos, because sometimes bein hashmashos will come before Shabbos. They sort of allocated X amount of time, and they realized they underestimated, like people tend to do. Umikru kavru betel. So Bishlama, the road of the Beis HaKvaros, because sometimes Ben Hashmashos will come and they'll bury on a mound, in the mound. Ela ir hasmucha leBeis HaKvaros, but the city next to the Beis HaKvaros, why would anybody bury in the city and not the cemetery? Kula Beis HaKvaros, won't everybody go to the Beis HaKvaros? So Gemara says, no, there are instances where a person might bury even in the city. For example, Amar of Chanina, mitoch shanoshim kover sham neflam. Women may bury their miscarriages, umukei shchin zrayasam, those who have skin ailments where their limbs need to be amputated. They may bury a limb, and the halacha is that a limb from a living person is metame, like from a mace. Ad chamishim amma, up to 50 amos, azli ihi luchuda, she would go alone. So up to 50 amos, even if it's new, we have to assume that the woman would go on her own, and we don't know about it, so it's tameh. Tfei, more than 50 amos, davra inish bahada, a person would go with her, and therefore we say, only if it's old, it's tamei. L'beis hakvaros azay, they would go to the cemetery. Hilkach tuma be'eretz Yisrael lo machzekina. Therefore, in fact, we are not machzik tuma in Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said, we just learned the sheet of Rav Meir. Rav Meir says people only remember for 60 years. Shema minam Rav Meir. We learned from Rav Meir, Hai Sahadusa, this testimony, Ad Shitin Shnin Midkar. Up to 60 years, people remember. Tfei loy midkar. More than that, people don't remember. Because we just said, Reb Meir says that a old mound, so more than 60 years old, if it's far away, the halacha is that if it's far away, after 60 years old, it's tameh. So we see people only remember for 60 years. The Gemara says, no, it's not true. If random information, maybe people only remember for 60 years. But once somebody sort of put to his mind they have to be a witness and testify, then people will retain information even for more than 60 years. Says the Gemara, Aval Hacha, Says Gemara, Shram, Amr of Chizda, Shma min Amr Amer, we see from Amer, Hai Sahadusa, this testimony, Ad Shitin Shnin Midkar, for 60 years a person remembers, Tfei Loi Midkar, more than 60 years a person doesn't remember. Says Gemara, V'loihi, but it's not true. Hasam hu Duloi Ramya Alei. There, by burial, a person doesn't put it upon himself to remember longer than 60 years. Aval Hacha, but by testimony, Kivan de Rami Alei, since a person puts it on himself as a responsibility, Afilu Tuvanami, a person may remember a testimony as a witness even more than 60 years. Let's see the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to discuss how many Eidim are needed to testify about each signature on a shtar. Ze oimer ksav yadi, v'ze ksav yadi shechaver. If somebody says, this is my handwriting, this is the handwriting of my friend. V'ze oimer, and this one says, ze ksav yadi, this is my handwriting, v'ze ksav yadi shechaver, and this is the handwriting of my friend. Harei elu ne'amanim, they are believed. But ze oimer ze ksav yadi, v'ze oimer ze ksav yadi, but if this one says, this is my handwriting, and that one says, that's my handwriting, so they're not testifying about the other person's signature, only about their own, then they have to be mitzaref, another witness with them for their own signature. Divrei Rebbe, that's the opinion of Rebbe, who holds that you need to have two witnesses on each signature. The sages say, you don't have to join up anyone else with them. A person is believed on their own signature to say, this is my own signature. You don't need two Eidim on each signature. We're going to hold it over here tonight. Thank you everybody for joining. And Bez Hashem, next week, regular schedule, Daf Chaf Aleph. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Gayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.